Today I'm going to talk to you about a movie that came out on Netflix called Take Care of Maya. A quick disclaimer, this is for educational purposes only and there will be spoilers in my review. The movie starts to talk about a young girl named Maya. She starts experiencing extreme pain all over her body, and her feet and her legs start to turn inward to the point that she can no longer stand or walk. Her mother, who is also a nurse, starts taking her to doctors trying to figure out what's going on, but something is just not right and nothing seems to help. Eventually, her mother finds a doctor online after researching who specializes in a specific medical condition, so they take Maya to him. The doctor diagnoses Maya, and her mom and dad agree with the diagnosis. So here is Maya with her family, her mom and her dad and her brother. The movie talks a little bit about how her mom had a hard time getting pregnant with Maya. Eventually they got pregnant with her, and then her brother was a surprise. Once they diagnose Maya, they realize the treatment is not working, so the doctor recommends they take her to Mexico because they have a treatment there that's not yet approved in the United States. So the family is desperate and they take her to Mexico and they do the 5-day coma treatment, and she ends up coming out of it, and they saw a huge improvement. They said she was starting to swim, she was happy again, she wasn't in pain, and so things started to move in a positive direction for the family. One night during a hurricane, the family said that Maya started experiencing extreme stomach pain, so they took her into the children's hospital to see what was going on. Once they get to the hospital, Maya's mother explains what her diagnosis is, and the hospital found it very rare and weird because it wasn't something that they really hear of. And the mom was kind of pushy and said, "This is what my daughter needs. This is going to help her." Maya did have a doctor that she was working with, so the family was giving Maya her medication that the specialist had prescribed her. But the hospital did not agree, and they were saying, "That's way too much medication for her. We don't know who told you that, why you're giving her this much medication." The children's hospital was not in agreement. Then comes in Sally Smith. They decide that they are going to accuse Maya's parents of medical abuse. So the hospital has Sally Smith come in and do an observation and some questions. She actually talks to Maya's doctor who is prescribing the medication, but she doesn't include any of that in her report. After Sally Smith gives her report, they decide, the state, that they are going to take Maya into custody and they are going to charge the parents with medical abuse. And in the movie, they said that Maya was in custody of the state for 3 months at the hospital. When the family was able to call, specifically Maya's mom, the state would accuse Maya's mom of overstepping her boundaries and she wasn't supposed to mention certain things on the phone. So then they would again have to prolong how long it was until Maya's mom was able to talk to her. The first court date that the family had with the state, Maya's mom ended up collapsing. They did a psychological evaluation and Maya's mom was not mentally ill in any way, or they did not find that she was medically abusing Maya, but they did state that probably from stress, anxiety, depression, Maya's mom had fainted. To be honest, this does sound like a very distressing situation, and Maya's mom felt extremely overwhelmed. One thing they also mentioned in the movie is that Maya's doctor had emailed Maya's mom and was saying that if they were not treating Maya correctly, she could start getting blood clots in her legs that would go to her lungs and she could die. I don't think anyone blames Maya's mom for fainting. She was under a huge amount of stress. She was extremely stressed over her daughter's life, safety, health. The hospital was not treating Maya with her diagnosis that the doctor had originally diagnosed her with, so the mom had an immense amount of pressure to try to keep Maya safe and alive. And we will continue the story in part 2. This is part 2 of Take Care of Maya. It is now December. Maya has been in custody of the state for 3 months, staying at the children's hospital. There is someone at Maya's bedside at all times who records conversations with the family and watches over her. Multiple letters did not get to Maya from the family. Maya had missed Thanksgiving with her family, and it was now December. Still has not been treated correctly for her medical diagnosis that was given to her before she got to the children's hospital. Sally Smith did speak to Maya's doctor, and again, she did not include that in her report. She still was going for medical abuse. There is a person telling Maya her family is abusing her. Maya states in the movie she was really confused. She didn't know what was going on. And the saddest part about it all that made me cry is when she kept saying, "I just want to hug my mom. I just want to see my mom. I just want to talk to my mom." And they kept refusing her to do that. Bad medicine. Critics say powerful pediatrician too quick to diagnose child abuse, traumatizing families. In December, Maya's mom asked the judge, "Can I hug my daughter?" That's all she wanted, was to hug her daughter, and the judge said no. Shortly after, Maya's mom unalived herself, and after that, Maya was able to return back to her family. So once the situation was deemed safe, because Maya's mom was no longer alive, Maya was able to return home. Then we learn towards the end of the movie, this is not a rare occasion for families to experience this when dealing with Sally Smith. This has happened to multiple families who have brought their children in to the children's hospital, and Sally Smith has accused many families of medical abuse. Florida's child welfare system, to be published in coming months, it found more than a dozen instances where charges were dropped, parents were acquitted, or caregivers had credible claims of innocence, yet suffered damage to their lives and reputations. Another girl named Tara Brown, who was 39, was accused of inflicting countless fractures on her 6-week-old infant, but the charges were dropped after another doctor diagnosed them with a rare bone disease. Tara then goes on to say that Sally Smith told her that if she didn't tell them what was wrong with the child, she'd put my child in foster care. She looked us straight in the eye and said, "One of you is lying, one of you abused your child." And we will go to part 3. So let's talk a little bit about Sally Smith. She worked at the Children's Hospital in the 90s. She then became the medical director of the County Child Protection Team in 2002, and she held the position ever since. So this individual psychologist says that she was always kind and she was qualified and she always seemed like a good person to work with, and I respected her medical opinion. Sally Smith quickly made a name for herself as a staunch child advocate who was quoted often in local newspapers speaking out against shaken baby syndrome. And then she also was known as a hardliner who sometimes crossed boundaries while interrogating families. Sally is also, quote, saying, "We have to ask a lot of questions to trip families up. Most of the time they've thought of the main lie, but they haven't thought of all the details. So if you keep asking questions, the story falls apart." So if you watch the movie, there will be other families who share their stories at the end, and it is just crazy to me. Specifically, one family had brought their son in for brain bleeds and bruising, and they were already accused of abusing their baby. The family ended up taking their son to another doctor, and their son got diagnosed and he was able to get treatment. This story breaks my heart. This family was seeking answers for their daughter, and instead they get accused of abusing their child. At the end of the movie, we learned that the Children's Hospital was actually billing the family's insurance under the medical diagnosis they kept saying Maya did not have. So if the hospital was claiming that Maya did not have this diagnosis and they were not treating her, why did they bill the insurance saying that is what Maya had? So all around, this situation is just messed up and completely wrong. My son has a blood disorder, and if I would have taken my son into that children's hospital, who knows what would have happened. There has been many situations where children get taken away and put into foster care even though they have some type of medical disability, and they end up not even being treated effectively because they believe the parents are abusing them and not because the child may have a medical disability. I am not sure why Sally Smith would do this and would purposely accuse families of abusing their children. I believe a children's hospital's first priority is to find out what's wrong with the child and seek a medical diagnosis, and then if you can't find a medical diagnosis, maybe seek other options. But to jump on a family and accuse them of abuse is just, it's evil. I really hope their family gets their day in court, and I really hope this does not continue to families because it is extremely overwhelming. It's extremely hard to live in these situations, and it's expensive, and a lot of families cannot afford private lawyers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and definitely go watch this movie.